Welcome to the Learning Can't Wait podcast, a Full Mind production. At Full Mind, our vision is to ensure every child has access to an exceptional education. Each episode, we will be joined by pathfinders within and around the education space who are bringing about transformational change on behalf of deserving students. I am your host, Haley Spirabauer. Welcome back, everybody, to the Learning Can't Wait podcast. I am enamored with our next guest. As I told her a moment ago, I love her voice, her authenticity, and her real deep knowledge about many, many topics. We have Dr. Sabba Quidwai, CEO and founder of Designing Schools, joining us today. Sabba, welcome.
I'm so excited to be here and hang out with you.
You know, you're on the West Coast, but your energy is very East Coast midday energy right now. So I think this is going to be a great conversation.
I'm excited.
Sabba, a lot of people know you for your strong presence in the world of education technology, but can you tell us all, how did you come to be the personal and professional version of yourself?
Oh, I feel like it was like a series of unfortunate events, maybe, that led me there. No, I always say so much of what I do today is really driven by the fact that I graduated right before the recession. And I was one of those people who had like checked all the boxes. And when I walked into the world and found I had checked the wrong boxes and that those, and not even the wrong boxes, that those boxes didn't exist anymore and that there were new boxes that I should have been checking, that was a real turning point and in many ways like an obsession that has led me to where I am today. Like how do we become more informed about not just existing in emerging technologies, but even just existing in emerging trends? And more importantly, how do we prepare young people with the skills and mindsets to be aware of those trends and then also be able to know what to take advantage of? Because I think, obviously we can all agree the world is changing, but I think a lot of people use that and think it's like just changing now. And I always tell people like it's been happening for like the last 20 years. Like ever since I graduated, this has been the kind of like momentum has just been building, 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 building. And so I think a lot of what I do today is just really driven by my own experiences as a learner.
Wait, so where do we go to look to keep our finger on the pulse of these emerging trends? Like I go to look candidly at LinkedIn. I look at what you're saying, other people are posting. I read articles. I have the sites that I typically go to, but where does Saba go to keep her finger on the pulse of emerging trends?
Yeah, I feel like, a lot of these are shared, I think, like in research articles. I think there's a lot of like I think it takes a while to kind of like build like your little kind of like circle of influence. And one of the groups that really influenced me very, very early on was EdTech Teacher. It was Justin Wright, Tom DeCord, Beth Holland, Gail, Ross McBride, Greg Kolowick, Sean McCusker. And these were a group of people that just, this is back in like 2011 when I was first learning about iPads. And they used to share some like really, really, really interesting research. And, I remember one of the ones Justin shared with us was the digital use divide. It was 2001, written by Paul Atwell. We don't just have like a digital divide, like we have a digital use divide. It's not enough to put technology in everyone's hands. We have to change the tasks that are being done. Beth Holland, I remember, introduced me to one of my favorite papers, The Digital Native, the myth of the digital native, that like just because the young people are born with technology and they have their phones and devices in their hands doesn't mean they know how to use these things in academic and professional settings. So I think curating the right group of people to surround yourself with. Another very influential person, the two influential person for me was Seth Godin and Eric Brynjolfsson, both authors. And so I think books, like I think once you find like one area of interest that you like, the people that those people are connected to kind of become like your way of being able to get access and exposure to some different things. I'll tell you what I stay away from. I stay away from a lot of like random opinions that are not backed up by informed research. I'm
Yes.
very, very much a research data driven person. And I think a lot of answers that we're looking for can be found in a lot of historical works.
Ooh, that's really interesting. And I appreciate the hot take. I like want all of your hot takes today, but I appreciate that hot take because I do think I claim that I'm like reading all this stuff online, but I can be really easily persuaded when I see someone post like a quick piece from an outlet. And then when you look closer, you realize, oh, wait, you actually have to investigate the source information, was it born of like generative AI that has hallucinations in it? Like you have to do all the deep research, even when you're looking at new ideas.
Yeah. And I think it's also really comforting to know, like, even if you look back just at people like, Dewey and like, like there's like here's another one. Oh God, what's his first name? Something Seymour. He has such a beautiful line in one of his books. It was like literally the book was so old, there was only like some paperback version of it. And I forget what his name is. His last name is Seymour. And he has this like really great book that's like, what do you mean by learning? And these are like decades old. So I just feel
Totally.
like there's a lot there when you go back before like technology, before all these things, when people talked about learning and all these different things, that you can get so much from there about what can really help you now.
Yeah. I do think the conversation is not often grounded in the original source
Yeah,
texts that
never,
you're naming
never.
here. But like I would argue that from what I know about you, that's why you are so adamant and really articulate about the idea of design thinking. And really, I know that you speak volumes on the topic of really leading with empathy and connecting learning to empathetic like worldview creation. So talk us through my opinion of you. Is it true? Like, are you really, is that why you root yourself in design thinking? And what does designing schools, how does it fit into this like worldview you've curated?
Yeah. So like one of the people that I was really influenced by was Eric Brynjolfsson, and him and Andrew McAfee. They were both professors at MIT, so they're economists. So they look at the impact of digital technologies on the economy, and they wrote this book called The Second Machine Age. And the last line of the book is, "Technology is not destiny. We shape our destiny." And I found that to be so interesting. I was like, wow, like how do you shape your destiny? Like who doesn't want to shape their destiny? And the whole purpose of their book was to say that yes, technology is moving fast. Yes, technology is doing all these things, but it should never drive the conversation. What should drive the conversation is you and how you want to shape what comes next. And that's just something that like they've talked about since like I can ever since I've been following him for like over 10 years. And so that one line really then led that question, okay, well, how do you shape your destiny? And it just so happened at this about a month or two later, I went to an ed camp, and there were two first grade teachers, and there was a session on design thinking. And honestly, at that time, I was actually teaching at I was director of innovative learning at USC, and I don't even know what drew me to this session. I won't even be able to remember, but I went in there, and it was two first grade teachers talking about how they were merging reading, literacy, engineering, and technology with this method called design thinking. And they actually had us do the process. And so they had this book, and it was called Catch That Rat. And they were like, oh, like everybody reads these books to kids and da da da. But instead of just reading the book and answering some questions, they had the students choose a character, become that character. Why is this character feeling this way? What is the character doing? What is the character seeing? What problem does the character have in the story? And what solution are you going to create? And I was like, whoa, you just took like the most common like reading experience and just with a small tweak, completely redefine the skills, the experience, and the activities that somebody could do when engaging with something. And I think that concept of making a small tweak, just starting with that empathy lens of like, okay, well, what is this character feeling? Instead of automatically being like, okay, so, like, let's answer these questions from like the book or whatever, really, really, really made an impression on me. And I went home and, anytime I find something interesting, it's like you go down this rabbit hole. And so I went down this rabbit hole of like design thinking and learning more. And the more I read about it, the more I practiced it, the more I tried it, the more I was just seeing results. Like we saw
Yeah.
so many results from implementing design thinking. It was like absolutely incredible. And the process was so specific. And I think the other thing that really resonated with me about it was mindsets. Um, it's one thing to go through a process, it's another that over time that process makes you a certain type of person. And so like the design thinking mindsets are like you hear these all the time, like learn from failure and like, your first try isn't your last try. But those, if you don't have a system for what that looks like for you, it's very hard to implement, especially if it's not your normal. And design thinking gives you that system to be able to be comfortable with ambiguity, to also be optimistic, because with design thinking, like we don't assume we know like it's okay to not know the answer. And that's so the opposite of kind of like most spaces that we're in, where you're expected to know everything, you're expected to know the answers. And with design thinking, if you know the answer, you're actually wrong. You need to let go of that answer, and you have to go back to that beginner's mind and begin with that, how might we? So just the entry point of those three words, how might we, implies like, oh, we don't know, but we can figure it out. And I think that is so empowering to people's creative confidence that it's one of the most valuable. So that was my research, right? Like, can that mindset be what helps people with AI? And I really do believe that it does, because it empowers you as an individual.
So I would guess that you would say no one is yet an expert in AI.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you could say that people are experts in AI, but I think there's a lot of people who are extremely knowledgeable that can make that you, if you listen to them, it's, I always say this is the easiest way to say it right now, is like, where do you want to place your bet on the future? Because things right now, there's too many different influences, right? Like, it's an AI, the future of AI won't be shaped by one particular group or one influence.
Mhm.
There's multiple forces at play. So you have to be able to have an understanding of these different forces in your context, in your like country, basically, and you have to be like, okay, I'm listening here, I'm listening here, I'm listening here, I'm listening here. This is where I think I want to place my bet. And maybe it's not just
Mm.
one place. Maybe it's like, okay, I'm going to place a little bit here, a little bit here. I'm going to go in between these two things. And I think that's the best that anybody can do right now. But I think there are a lot of people that are extremely knowledgeable that have been studying things. Like Eric Brynjolfsson is a great example. Mustafa Suleyman, Demis Hassabis, Mo Gauda. Like, there's a lot of people that have been living this
Mm.
pre-ChatGPT. And
Yeah.
that's a criteria I actually have usually when I'm learning from somebody about AI, is how long have you been in this? Because after ChatGPT, I just think the processing time is hard. These people have an advantage of time in that they have spent more time thinking about something. Therefore, you are getting a deeper level of their understanding that you will likely come to a year from now, but that you won't come to in this very moment in your first iteration of something.
That's fair. A line in the sand is important when you're trying to qualify. It's like anything else. You have to be able to have criteria for where you're paying attention and where you're putting your
Yeah.
energy and your limited time, which is a resource. Saba, in an AI powered world, uh, not every skill is going to be as important. So I'm wondering what skills you believe are truly irreplaceable for students to develop.
You know what's so funny? This is where I go back to like, not like, yes, things like are different, but so much hasn't changed. But it's just it's the luxury element of it, I think, is different. But one of the ones that I think a lot about is, can you learn independently? When things are changing so quickly, if you're waiting for that next session, you're waiting for the next class, you're waiting for that year when I take that topic and study this, I think that's a very I think that can be difficult. And so I think your ability to like, one, this is why I think I'm very like, have a criteria for how you're going to learn, for what you want to learn, for what you want to do. There's a lot of skill that goes into learning independently. And I think there's a lot of things we throw around that, and I think this is why a lot of people get intimidated, because we say like, oh yeah, just learn to learn. Like, no, most people don't know how to learn. And so
Mm-mm.
but why like educators are so important, because you can teach people this from a young age. And one of the things that learning independently gives you, I believe, is agency. You can have strong opinions when you are a strong,
Yeah.
because you are informed. You are not just making opinions for the sake of them or making decisions for the sake of it. It's, you can say, no, I'm doing this and I believe in this because of XYZ. And I think at a time when so many things are changing, having belief in yourself when other people may not could make or break you. Because you could actually be really correct because you've been reading these things and you've been seeing these things and you've been doing these things. But if everybody else around you isn't, and that influences your belief in yourself or your creative confidence or influences your agency, you may now end up being influenced by something that's incorrect. So being able to like really evaluate and analyze like those elements so that you can live your best life, I think are two things that really go hand in hand. So learning to learn and taking initiative.
There's a couple people right now in the space that are talking about so much about the human element of living in this world with emergent technologies changing and evolving and frankly emerging every single day. And I gravitate to those people like
Yeah.
Michelle Culver and you both. I feel like have such a clear vision for this world that we don't fully know how it will change and evolve yet, but how humans play such an integral part both as individuals and as the collective to see see the world we want in the future by being human and connecting with one another. So I just really appreciate that element of it, because at the end of the day, we will still exist. The technology will be us, beside us, around us, within us, like it will be everywhere, but we will still be human. So I really love your emphasis of that element, because it is very, very refreshing.
Yeah. And we want people to have the best quality life too, right? Like you want people to and that goes back to like why I do what I do, like and what shapes me is like I didn't feel like I had that when I came out. Like
Yeah.
I remember like it was only looking back that I realized even though like I had a phone and I had all those things when I graduated, but it was only looking back, I was like, wait a minute, how was like a bunch of us getting laid off and losing a bunch of things? And it was a time when a lot of people really struggled economically, while some people were like literally building the app store that like today
Mhm.
none of us can live without. Airbnb, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, iPhone, you name it, 3G, Watson. Like, how did some people get to know that and other people didn't? That to me directly impacts quality of life, quality of opportunities, and all those other pieces. So, yes, we're all human. Yes, we'll be here. Like, let's give everybody the best shot at living their best life.
Ooh, that's a word right there. I love it. Saba, you're speaking a lot at the system level and about the system level, but you have a really discrete focus as well. You're currently teaching a class at UCI, and you have a like first row seat into how students are experiencing technology today. Talk to us a little bit about what is their worldview.
Yeah, so their worldview is very fascinating. It's amazing. So I just want to share why I decided to do this because I spend a lot of time working with leadership teams and a lot of times in places and even in the media, you just hear so many competing narratives about what teachers are like and what the field is like and what education is like and why people are the way they are in terms of why they're struggling to adapt and things like that. And so there was one report in particular that really motivated me, and it was it was a Pew Research Center last year, and I think it was something like 62% of educators would not recommend this profession to young people. And I was like, that's sad. That's not only extremely sad, that is a problem. And so I was like, you know what? I want to meet the people who are making this decision and choosing to enter this field, regardless of all the things they're probably hearing and seeing. And, people always say like, teachers are like, extra special and like this and that and whatnot. And like, it's true because you're driven by different motivations. But I was like, this group right now, you're a little like extra, extra. And so I was like, I want to meet you. So I went back to UCI and luckily there was an opening to be a supervisor. So I started last year as a supervisor where I was just going into classes and observing them during their student teaching. And one of my number one takeaways from like of their worldview and like whatnot, which actually informed a lot of what I teach now in this course, is they have such strong intuition about what to do, what to design, relationship building, like so many of the things that we're trying to teach them, they have a very, very strong intuition towards when it comes, especially to relationships. However, because they have such little experience, they do not know how to trust that intuition because they don't know where it's coming from. They can't connect dots. They often have very outdated master teachers. Like, I will say one thing on this podcast, I think more creative and innovative people need to step up as the master teachers. Like, it is truly, truly, truly one of the biggest friction points I've observed that if you can get like innovative, creative, like these amazing people as master teachers, your pipeline will start to automatically like be much, much, much better. So, anyways, this year I asked them if I could teach the technology course. And like, anyways, they ended up letting me. And so I'm working with elementary and secondary masters and credential students. And one of the first things we're doing like this entire week is we started by having them examine their own relationship with technology. So these are all kids that are in their early 20s. Many of them are fresh out of undergrad that have really like grown up in like a completely different world where social media was the norm. They've been on the receiving end of a lot of the challenges that they're now going to experience as educators for another generation with new technologies. And so I realize the reason they can't trust that intuition is because they don't have enough dots to connect for why they feel the way they do. And so
Mm.
what's been really interesting in doing this experience is as they've been talking about their experiences and their relationship with technology, they understand now why they think and feel a certain way. But I'll tell you, the most interesting thing was almost like I didn't even ask them about AI at the beginning because I kind of knew that they would have like opinions that were very much influenced by like obviously their experiences. So I was like, let me give you some experiences first, and then we at the end we will recap and we will discuss. And I have this survey. I'm going to publish it actually Thursday. Tomorrow's the last class, and so I'm going to curate all of them and I'm going to publish this in an article. I think 95% of kids said, I had a negative view of AI and now I am feeling much more optimistic. And
Oh.
I was like, and I shouldn't be shocked because all the data tells us that like, that's how like they're thinking about it. But I was like, what has been going on in your life the last 3 years?
Mm.
Think this is so negative. Like it was like they sounded like really traditional individuals. They did not sound like 20-year-olds at all. And it was really interesting to me though, how just again, I always say this, like one or two experiences that are real, that are authentic, that are well designed can completely shift your perspective. Not because we're going to trying to get you to fall in love with AI, but because we need you to understand how these, that this is not going away, that this is not negative. Like whether it's negative or positive is up to you and what you design as an educator and what you take into your classroom. And so it's been really interesting to see that. And I'd say the second thing that I thought was really interesting is nobody's explicitly taught them. This is another question I ask. Has anyone ever taught you how to use these tools in academic or professional settings? And the answer is no. And that comes from that myth of a digital native, because that's what he used to say, like that delineation. So it's just been week one. There's like 6 more weeks to go, but the other thing I would say that I didn't expect is we talk a lot about teaching AI for the benefit of kids. Oh, it's their future. They need to learn. But the joy that it brought me to be that person who could be that space where they could have that conversation, where I'm watching them learn. They look like first graders. They're just adorable, learning something for the first time, being challenged. They had come in with a perspective and they were getting something a little bit different, but not because I'm telling you, because I'm giving you experiences to engage in that are challenging and giving you new ideas and opening new thoughts and opinions for you. That to me is like the definition of teaching. Like, can you bring that goes back to that exposure, right? Like that is going to be a group of educators who are going to walk into their classrooms and their schools and districts very, very well informed about what's coming next. And that's going to set them apart.
Yeah, it's definitely a different approach than you're hearing in other places, Saba. What I what stands out to me, like Haley the person, is so often you've brought it up twice that we aren't teaching kids how to use the tool. You said we aren't teaching, like kids aren't always learning how to learn. And there's so often that I actually just spoke about this yesterday with Nate from Getting Smart, that so often we are like obsessed with the idea of content, but not obsessed with the process. And I feel so strongly that process orientation of learning experience it sets kids up for a better future. And so I love hearing that you agree. It makes me feel very validated, but I love hearing that you agree. And I think it's so true with AI. Like, are the kids trying tools? Are they like having an opportunity to solve problems using a variety of tools and then comparing and contrasting them? Like teachers too. Even when you look at these big systems like New York City public schools, and you ask the teachers, how are you using AI? They maybe have, and this is generalized, like knowledge of one tool, like, oh, ChatGPT or like
Yeah.
Claude. But it's so much bigger than that.
Yeah, it really is. And what makes it bigger is actually not the technology, it's those skills. So there's
Yeah.
also this irony that the very things that people are afraid of losing are the things that you should be doubling down on right now. But because you're not engaging in this, you're not doubling down on the things that actually matter. Like even just the simple exercise of Notebook LM. So one of the things we did was I showed them, I was like, you're not just going to go into Notebook LM and play. No, you're going to name it this way. I'm going to give you a system for naming. Now, down the line, you may create your own system, but you need a system to start with. So like take your course title, take your course name, maybe your professor name, and you're going to create a different notebook for each of your classes. You're going to bring all of your sources in. And once they brought their sources in, so they did it for my one first, I asked them, I go, right, just off of that one experience, what skills matter? Because guess what? Like they realize right away information literacy. If you don't know how to
Yeah.
evaluate sources and you don't know how to choose and curate what it is you want to learn, you could be totally setting yourself up to fail with wrong information. So it's
Mm.
how you create that, how you do that, how you choose this. There's so much critical thinking and many, many other skills that go into that, that was a real like, oh yeah, like so when people say things to you now, so now when somebody goes to them and says AI is going to make kids dumb, they actually have a story they can share to challenge that point of view.
Mm.
I'm just creating a bunch of rebels.
Yeah, no, I rebel away. Let's all be rebels. Let's
I was like,
all
when
be
you go
rebels.
into your spaces, these are the things that you're going to stay and stand up for. You're going to be the
Yes.
person.
So I think you're kind of leading us to this last question, which is, I'm really curious what advice you would give a teacher who's starting their career today.
Oh my gosh. I have this line that I think people get it wrong. I think schools will be replaced, but not teachers. And I think the difference between what makes a great teacher is exactly what I just described. There's going to be the person who's checking the boxes, doing the content, and you're going to figure out the way I did in 2007 that those boxes were the wrong boxes and that they don't exist anymore. It's not that we don't need them, but there are a different set of boxes. And I think the best advice I can give you is to identify what you want those boxes to be for yourself because it could be different for different people. There may be people who are like, you know what? I just don't want to do this. Like, I'm just going to resist and I'm just going to keep my boxes. Okay, amazing. That is a path you are choosing. But if you are somebody who's like, okay, but I'm curious, but I want to know, but I just don't know what, my number one piece of advice would be, what are those boxes? Because I tell my students too, in the next 5 years, there's going to be 10 different more school models for you to choose from, not just this K-12 public school that you're walking into right now. And
Mm.
that's it. There's going to be so many more places where learning, like really get clear on the difference between what it means to go to school and what it means to learn. People who support people in learning will always find a place for themselves. I teach people how to learn in 50 different spaces, and that is going to become, I think, the norm for teachers and how we do things because there's just going to be a lot more out there. And so be aware of that, be ready for that be the person who's ready for it when it comes because it's very hard to take advantage of those things when they are here, but it's very easy to take advantage of them if you have been building that momentum over time.
Sabba, you are such a light and such a force. I want to be on record stating that your approach to this conversation is unbelievably refreshing. Thank you so much
Oh,
for sharing your expertise, your wisdom, and just like your energy with our audience today.
well, I will go on record for saying that you are like one of the kindest. Do you know I had never heard a sugar wish before. So the fact that you sent me that, so like for everybody listening, like I had a little accident, but the fact that like the day we were supposed to record this podcast, I thought that was the most thoughtful, like I will never forget it. Like it
That's
left
so
such an
sweet.
impression. I will never forget it. So thank you.
That's really sweet. And as I know you are very big on, this world needs a lot of empathy. And even with the technology ever evolving, as I said before, we're still people. And so human to human connection is great. And I'm just so glad that we connected.
Me too. Well, thank Jennifer Womble for that.
I was just about to
Yes.
say it's a
Yeah,
Jen
I was
Womble
gonna
special.
cannot do this without her.
Oh my gosh, that's the answer to a lot of things, isn't it?
It truly is. It truly is. That should be the advice for people. Like,
Yeah.
go follow and become friends with Jennifer Womble because she's just I mean, talk about a light force. Like, talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you, Jen Womble. Thank you, Sava. And thank you, everybody, for listening to this incredible episode today.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Learning Can't Wait podcast. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and share this episode. Be the first to know when we have a new episode by subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or have a suggestion for an episode, email us at podcast@fullmindlearning.com.